Hi guys, in this episode I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool in both Photoshop and Illustrator. Hi guys, my name is Calvin and I design, and that's why it's called Calvin Designs. Click over here if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel and get a bunch of free tutorials, and click right here to get all the source files for all my episodes. In this episode I'm going to teach you how to use the pen tool in both Photoshop and Illustrator to basically outline any elements, and this is what professionals use, and it's a really high-end tool, but many people don't want to use it because doesn't feel very natural. Well, with a few little tips, you'll see that it's really easy to use, and once you start using this, you can never go back. This is really an absolute must-use tool. We're going to basically take three little pictures. First, we're going to take a picture of a pear and outline that. Then we're going to take a picture of Venice and outline the roofs. And then we're going to take a picture of a man and outline that and all the little details that go along with it until it actually seems really easy to use the pen tool. Let's get started.
Alright, so I'm going to show you how to use the pen tool, and to get started, I recommend you go visit this website, creativetext.com, and I'll put the full link below in the details below the video. And basically this has a really cool pen tool cheat sheet and gives you all the little shortcuts to do all the things we're going to cover in this tutorial. And you can click on the PDF right here, and it'll actually open up, and you'll just have that, which is really nice. And if you want to get all the files, which is, we have a pear, we have this photo of Venice, and this photo of this man, which we're going to outline. If you want to get those files so you can practice outlining and follow along this tutorial, you can go to my website, calvindesigns.com/signup, and I'll put the link below the video as well. And once you put your name and email, you get access to all the source files for this tutorial and every other tutorial. All right, so let's just minimize this, and let's start off in Photoshop. And so we'll start with a pear. I'm going to drag this down to Photoshop so it opens it up in Photoshop. And we're going to zoom in, and you can use the zoom tool, or you can do Command plus, which I'm more familiar. It's a little shortcut, which is nice. All right, we see that's not a very big image, but good enough for us to practice some outlining. All right, so I'm going to start in a little bit closer, 200. That way I can really get some good detail. And we'll get started here with the pen tool. So I just click on the pen tool, or you can hit P, which is the shortcut for pen tool. And I'm seeing that it's going to create a path as opposed to a shape layer. And that's good. That's what I want. All right, so I'm actually going to start on this angle. I like starting at a sharp angle because it's easier to determine exactly where that point is. And I'm going to click, and I'm actually determining right now what's going to happen behind me. So you see I'm really I'm affecting the handle that's behind. So, and then once I'm done with that, and I'm like, I like this angle, I'm going to hold down the Alt key to break that. So now it's no longer affecting the angle behind, and I can go ahead and just let go. And I'm going to add another point right here, and I'm going to make it, again, I'm determining the back angle a little bit, and then hold the Alt key to make it a sharp angle and drag it that way. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to curve it this way, something like this, and break it up a little bit. Now, if you notice, I'm not quite, I could be 1 pixel to the left. So I'm going to hold down the Command key, and it turns into the arrow. And that way I can just move it. I can even move this little handle. So if you make a little mistake, it doesn't really matter. Just hold down the Command key, and then you can just move and manipulate any errors you might have made. All right, so I'm going to put another little one over here. And then I noticed that this handle now again needs to go more like there. Again, this is doing some pretty crazy detail, but it's just so you can see how this pen tool works. All right, and a lot of people have an aversion to the pen tool because it doesn't feel very natural. But once you get these little shortcuts down, you'll really see how easy it is to use this pen tool, and you get very precise curves, which are nice to have as opposed to just a quick mask or any other method of selection. So I don't have to get every little groove in here, but I want to get a nice curve. Nice thing about the pen tool is you can get these really nice curves that you would otherwise, with the brush tool, kind of bleed over it, and it's hard to really determine where on the brush tool exactly to define these shapes. So I made my sharp edge. Go this way. Make another little bump right there. One here. So I am at 200%. If I really, sometimes when I'm doing very high detail work, I will even go further. I will do something like 300%, and I'm usually working with a much higher resolution image. But this is a really good start. This pair, I would say all the little droplets here make it for a bunch of little bumps, so it's good practice. And if you don't want the bumps, you can easily make a smooth curve with the pen tool. Here, for example, I want to have it straight, so I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and now it will stay perfectly straight. And that way, I'm going to say this is my defining edge on this side. And you see it really draws a nice smooth curve. And I can actually bring it down just a notch, something like there, and then bring this up a tad. So there we go. And this doesn't have any bumps. So again, when you have a really smooth curve, the fewer anchor points that you have, fewer points that have handles that you can manipulate, the better, because it'll be a smoother edge. So I'm going to try to make this using only 2 anchor points. And I'll draw one on the bottom that's totally flat, and one that's on the right side here that's totally vertical. And now with holding down the Command key and the Shift key, I can bring this out a little bit, and bring this out a little bit. If I'm missing an anchor point and it's not quite perfect, I can always do that. So, and we can try to bring it up here. But like I said, the fewer anchor points, the better, because it'll be a really nice smooth curve, which you would otherwise not be able to have. All right, because it's not a perfect circle, it kind of goes in a little bit. We're going to have to add one. So I'm not touching anything, but with the pen tool, over a curve, it automatically decides that we need to add an anchor point. So I'm going to click right here, and with the Command key, bring it in. And then now I can manipulate this handle to kind of adjust with that, and now I have a really nice smooth curve. Okay, and let's bring one over here. And I see that this one goes a little too far. So bring it in like this. Bring this a tad up like so. Okay, and then this one can come out a little bit. So this the pen tool may seem a little unfamiliar at first, and it is. It's not an exact. It's not like a brush stroke, which we've practiced as children, or a pen or something like that. It uses the Bezier curves, and it's a mathematical way of drawing. And but once you get used to it, you'll see that it's actually pretty simple. You have to just really get used to these little shortcuts. So the Alt key to break your anchor, and adding an anchor point right into onto a line. And all right, so here you have a little soft, we have a soft angle, and that's usually best made or drawn with 2 very small anchor points that are not sharp edged, and that way you get a kind of a nice rounded edge. And I can bring this in a little bit like so, and a little bit like so. Now, this is really small, but we want to get that good detail in there. All right, so I'm going to bring this over here, and something like this. I'll bring this way, bring this in this way, and then I'll basically adjust it using this anchor. All right, and I'm going to skip over a little bit some of this detail. So the idea is you want to outline as many images as possible using the pen tool until you feel like it's your preferred selection method. And this takes a little bit of practice. This takes quite a bit of outlining. But after you've done maybe 10 or even less, depending on how familiar you are with other outlining tools, you will really go back to this, and this is really the industry standard, what people have been using to outline now for many, many years, and for a long time was actually the only method to get transparency from programs. Before we had InDesign for layout, we had to use this and import it into Quark, and because Quark couldn't, at the time, import PSDs or images that had transparency. All right, so bring this in, this out a little bit, something like that. Maybe add a little anchor tool right here to make this easier. Bring this one over here. Okay. On this nice sort of straight edge, I'll try to keep as few anchor points as possible. The fewer, the smoother. Really, that's how it works. Something like this. And we'll go up here. And something like that. And I'm actually going to cut it right up here. Bring this. Now, if I move this, I see I'm affecting both of these anchors. So that's a nice way to just slightly modify your line. I'm just holding down the Command key, and I'm able to adjust the entire line. You may have noticed right here, instead of having a double, I usually have 2 anchors, but because I clicked just once, it made a straight, no anchors, and then once I clicked, I then held down the Option key, which gives me a single handle. All right, so I'm going to go down here and bring this down like this, and up here, and just want to get a little bit of this, not the whole thing. Something like so, and bring it in here. Again, click, and then, oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to click and then hold on the Alt key so I get a single handle. And then you see that little circle, that means I've gone, and I'm going to close this path. So I can go ahead and just pull, and I'm affecting the pulley on that side right here. So I'm affecting this one right here. Something like this. I can bring this up a notch just to get a slightly nicer curve in here. And bring this up a tad, something like that. All right, so now that we've done our, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. We've done our path, and you see there's a bunch of little vector points. And the path in Photoshop goes into the paths. And I'm just in the Essentials workspace, so that's by default over here. And it created what's called a work path. A work path is a temporary path. You haven't saved it. So to save it, just double click on it, and we'll call this pair outline. Okay, now you can do many things with this. If you import into other programs, this will be available, and you can say, well, I want the transparency or not. You can also just command click it, and now it's a selection. If you want to convert this to have a mask, you just click on the mask, and now you see the transparency. And you can always go ahead and affect this if you want a smoother edge and so on. And another way to do this is we'll just go back a little bit right before we had the selection. I'm going to deselect, and with this path selected, I go here and I say make a mask. So at first it makes a bitmap mask, which is it hides using the brush tools and pixels. And if I click it again, it now converted that path into a vector path, a vector mask, sorry. So, and now I can go in here and I say, oh, there's a little bit in here. It could, it could be a little in, but you see this path now is the mask of this image. So that's pretty handy. And you can go ahead and manipulate this as you wish. Okay, so, and let's just save this PSD right where the original was and call it a PSD, so that's the same. And we can go ahead and save it, and we're done. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this. Now the second one, Venice, which looks like this. It's a photo by my good friend Serge Rumley. And we will outline this, but this time we'll do it in Illustrator. It's essentially the same tool. So let's just create a new file, and let's just make this, for a web. Doesn't really matter, it's just for an exercise, but that way we have a little bit of space. And go here, and I'll go and place my image, and Go to the source files, and let's place Venice. And keep it as a link, doesn't really matter. All right, so I'm going to place this and just click right here. Here we go. So let's zoom in a little bit. And if you're unfamiliar with Illustrator, I'm not really going into too many details about all the tools of Illustrator. I really want to show you how to use the pen tool and how similar it is between Photoshop and Illustrator. Okay, so I am going to lock this layer so I cannot accidentally move my image, and I'm going to create a new layer. Again, I'm in the Essentials workspace. If your tools don't look like this, just go up here, click on Essentials, and if it is, but it still doesn't look the same, just hit Reset Essentials, and it'll look like this. Okay, so now I can go ahead and make a path. Now the difference here is with the pen tool, by default, I am creating a shape that has a fill of white and an outline or a stroke of black. I want neither of those. I'm going to click here and click here. That way, when I draw, I just want to see my path. I don't want to see any filler. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little more, get some nice detail, and I won't get into too much of this fuzzy stuff, which you can then later get into, but not with the pen tool, more with selective, other selection tools in Photoshop. But I want to show you how going about this can actually be really simple. Okay, so we'll get into the pen tool, which is just like in Photoshop, and actually see how I got this edge. I'm actually going to turn that off, which is Smart Guides. That way it doesn't snap to anything. All right, so I'm going to zoom in, and I just click right here. I'm going to click a little outside just so I don't. Now you see the difference here. It's showing me where that path is going to be. And I'm actually making just straight. I'm not doing any curves at this point. I'm just doing, now here I can. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and make a little anchor. And that way, boom, same here. And then hold the Alt key this way. One here. And a little curve right here. Up this way. So I'm skipping that little bar. You could get into doing those, which we'll get into in a minute. Like so. Here. Here. Undo that, Command Z. Click, and then hold on the Alt to just make it a single anchor point. Now this is all obviously kind of lengthy and meticulous, so I'm just going to fast forward some of this, which is extremely repetitive. Okay, so at this point, I'm coming around. I've done my main selection. So I can click here. Now, if I hold down the Command key, you'll notice that it's the Move tool, the black arrow, as opposed to the white arrow. So that means I'm going to move not just one anchor point, but the whole thing. So to change that, you select the white arrow, go back to the pen tool. And now, when I hold down the Command key, it's back to the arrow tool, the white arrow. So now I can just manipulate single anchors really nice and easy. And take this one, for example, just move this up. If I hold down a line, it moves 2 anchor points. This one, for example, I can even use the arrows on my keyboard to move them left and right. And you can change the increments by going to the Preferences, General, and here you have keyboard increments. Right now it's 1 pixel. So I'm so zoomed in that it's actually the smallest amount in pixels. If I were in millimeter, I could actually go smaller. But in pixels, I cannot. So I'm just going to go in here. I can zoom in also a little bit more and move this over right there. And I can do the same with this one. Now you can get into really fine detail, but for this project, this is actually pretty good. And now what I can do is if I go back to my layers, I have this new shape, and it's called a path. And I can just double click this, and I'm going to call this the outline. And this can be used for many different things. Whereas in Photoshop, it can be used to create transparency and create composites and so on. In design, you can also use it for just to separate different parts of an image. And I'll show you. If I were to make a title here, and I'll say Vacation 2014, and let's just make this a little bit nicer. Let's make this Myriad Pro bold, and let's just open up the type. It's not part of this tutorial, but just to, it's always nicer to have something that looks better. Let's make this like this. Let's go and change the kerning, but that's the letter, that's the space between the letters. And we can show some options here. And let's say I want this to be, I'm gonna hit the eye tool to get the this little eyedropper tool, and I want to get a green, something that's in the image. And let's try to make this really big, something like this, maybe 2 lines. And let's right align it. And let's make it all caps. So now we have a little too much leading. Leading is the space between the lines. And we'll go here, 70, something like this. And let's make it a little bit bigger, something like this. And now what I can do is I can take my outline, I can put it on top. Okay, what I can do is, once I have these selected, I can actually go into this one, go to my transparency palette, which is right here. I'm going to make a mask. So it's totally black, which means it's hiding everything. And I'm going to just turn that off. So it's the other way around. Whatever is black will be hiding. And I can go back to my layers, take this outline, copy it, Command C, or go up here and copy. And then go into here, go back to the transparency, go into the mask, and paste, Command V. Oh, what actually I'm going to undo that. What you want to do is actually paste in place. So it's exactly the same coordinates. And now when I put a fill of black, so double click on that foreground color, and we'll just pick a black, hit OK. Oh, pick the white. This, hit OK. Now you see it's actually masking everything that's there. And you can see the shape in here. So let's just close this. And you can actually see these are linked. So I can unlink them that way if I want to move my text. It's not moving my mask. And I actually don't really like this color. I would rather do it white. So I click on the default colors, take the stroke out, don't like the stroke. And perhaps something like this is not too bad. Maybe a little big. I just want to show you how a mask like this, using the pen tool, can actually be really easy. I went into some really fine detail, and had I done this from the beginning with the intention of putting a title here, I wouldn't have outlined everything. I would have outlined just the parts that I needed, which are around here and here. Okay, all right, so that's the pen tool in Illustrator, and we'll go back. We can actually save this. So here, save as, and we'll put it in the source files, and we'll call it Venice. I'm just going to open up so I can see where I'm putting it, and put it right here. I can just click on that so it grabs that name. AI file is good. Save it, and I'm done. Okay, I'm going to close this out, and now we're going to outline this photo, shallow, and in Photoshop. Now it's a little more detail, and there's as you can see, there's a hole in here, so we're going to deal with that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, Command plus, Command plus. I'm going to go at least 200%. I want to be able to see at least some good detail. I might even go 300%. Okay, and as like last time, I'm going to try to find a sharp edge. That way, like this, for example, I know that the anchor point has to be exactly there. So I'm going to click, drag. I'm not too concerned about the anchor point, the anchor that's behind, because I will go and edit that later. But hold down the Alt key after, and now I can draw his the curve of his hat. And again, the less amount of anchor points in a curve, the smoother it'll be. So here I'm going to click, draw the back one, and then hold down the Alt and draw the front one. By front, I mean this is the back, this is the front, because I'm going in this direction. Okay, then I'm going to make a small one over here, and then pull this one out a little bit, so it defines his ear nicely. Go over here, make a sharp one, something like that, and down. And then here I have another sharp one, so go like this, and hold down the Alt again, this way. I'm actually going to bring this down just a tad, bring this up, like so. And then here I'm going to make a straight one so that his collar looks nice and smooth. And it's kind of hard to see. This is a really pixelated image, very low resolution. But for this exercise, it's really perfect size. You need to really get familiar with the pen tool. So here I see that I need to add another one and hold down the Alt key and bring it up like so. And if I need to, I can always come back, hold down the Alt key, and I can break this so it's not a smooth anchor. It's a angled one, and so it goes down like that. All right, let's keep going, and something like this, something like this. As you can tell, I'm usually a little bit on the inside, and that's so that I don't really capture pixels from the outside. I don't want the building to show up once I've done my transparency mask. Here, pull it and then break it with the Alt key. And the rest is very similar, so I'm going to fast forward this little section here. All right, so we're getting a little close to the end here, and it's a little repetitive, but like I said, once you've practiced this, it actually is pretty simple. And oops, and it actually goes pretty fast. This took me a couple minutes. The good thing about the pen tool is you can always come back and edit it. With the masking, it's harder to really readjust a line, for example. All right, and let's just finish around his ear. Like so. Break it. Take this edge. I'm going to add a little anchor point right here to make it easier. It's always easier to add an anchor point, but you got to be careful because it might make unsmooth lines in your vector path. Okay, and bring it up here and bring the line out somewhere like that. Something like this. I'll add an anchor point, slightly tweak it, and try to make this a single path. Perfect. Okay. And now, if we go to the path, you can see I'm still on my working path, and we can even change the change it so we can see a little bit bigger. Okay, and now we're going to go over here, and I'm going to simply draw the hole, and it'll make it a hole. Pretty simple. I'm going to zoom in just a little more to get a little more detail or more pixels, and all right, go like this, break it. Here, bring it to here, and make it a path. Bring this up here, break it with the Alt key. Bring the path somewhere here, and then here. This seems like it's a harder edge, so I'm going to bring this over here like so, and like that. Okay, there's a hard edge here. Looks like there's a bump over here. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell with all these pixels. Break this one. But we're also at 500%. So, and if you're going to do a very high resolution image, an image that you really care needs to be very precise, you will have a better resolution. But this should give you a good idea of how to outline. Now you notice that second path is automatically in there and automatically subtracted because it's on auto add delete. If I make a shape outside of it, it's going to automatically add it. Okay, and looks like we're pretty good, so I can zoom out a little bit. And if I'm going to double click this and call this the outline and go to my layers, and this time instead of just applying it as a path mask, I'm going to command click it, turn it into a selection, and make it a mask. And I'm going to show you a cool little trick. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Now you're going to notice there's a few little things around here. And what you may, I'm actually going to undo the mask. You can always go, when you're in a selection tool, and click on Refine Edges. It's going to show me how it outlines, and I can do Smart Radius, and it's going to try to detect the edges and make it smoother. Now, because it's a pretty pixelated image, it's going to go around pixels, which is not that great. Like a little smoother, and you can also shift the edge. Take some of that out, come in. Right now, I'm losing a lot of the detail that I spent doing, so I'm going to turn down the radius, turn this off, and I just want it to go in a little bit. And we can see it's on white, which is not bad. And let's see the original and before. So that's before and after. So I'm basically just coming in a little bit. It's a little too much. I feel like I'm losing too much detail. I really just want it around here. And there's ways you can smooth it. Now in this image, because it's so low resolution, the Refine Edge tool will find all kinds of anomalies. So let's not use this. And instead, let's make a mask. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the blur tool, and strength 50 is fine for now. And let's make this, right click to get the brush options, make it a little bigger, and hardness 0 is fine. Okay, now I'm going to go in here and I'm blurring this edge, also known as feathering. I don't want to feather it too much. It's just the edges that I feel like could have been tweaked. And that's pretty good. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, in here, and take the burn tool. What I'm doing here is making the blacks blacker. And because the black hides and the white reveals, now when I do this, make sure that I'm on midtones, it's fine. When I go here, you see a little bit of the edge is going away, little by little. So I'm basically pushing the mask in by burning the edge. And it was easier to, it was possible to do that because I first had to blur it. If it was a perfectly sharp edge and I'm burning it, it'll affect it a little bit, but not enough. So now I got a nice selection. Okay, and that is one of the many uses of the pen tool. I really recommend that you use a cheat sheet as much as you need, and even if it's just sample images that you're practicing on, do as many as you can until it really becomes comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and save this PSD right here, and done, and there you go.
All right, guys, I hope you liked that episode. And please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and sign up to my newsletter if you want the source files. And I'll see you in the next episode.